Hi, I'm Alvaro, Sanchez, Sales and Marketing Director at Integrasys. We have done a report with WTA about understanding the VSAT return on investment and improving it. We are hosting this panel at VSAT event with world leader manufacturers and world leader satellite service providers that understand the return on investment and know how to improve it.
Yeah, so Denis Sutherland, so I manage the business development team in iDirect. So iDirect are a technology provider. We provide software and hardware solutions to our service provider customers. So we're not a service provider, but I think we have some great insights across the market. Our products, which number in something like 350 customers, 3,000 to 4,000 hubs deployed, and many hundreds of thousands of terminals deployed into the VSAT market. So we have great insight into the different vertical markets that are in the satellite industry. So maritime, we're very strong on aero, defense, and going into larger networks. So I look forward to talking about how we can increase the operational efficiency of the broad spectrum of different customer networks that we support.
So I'm Jesus Jimenez with RigNet, and I'm actually a customer of iDirect. We provide managed services across the globe with offices all over the world, primarily in the energy sector. We also deal with first responders and with mining and maritime. We provide services that are not commoditized, but looking at the application layer as well, where we get into cybersecurity, we get into voice, we get into VLAN services, and end-to-end connectivity of the managed services that we provide our customers across the globe on a routine and daily basis.
I'm Dan Losada, I'm with Hughes. We are kind of a company that's structured across multiple different business groups. We are a managed services provider in certain parts of the world. We actually operate a managed broadband offering for households and consumers. We also have an enterprise group that sells corporate networks that may use blended transport mechanisms, everything from terrestrial to satellite communications. And then we also are a hardware provider to customers around the globe who might require a network of their own that they want to run a private network. So we provide them with technology hubs and equipment for them to launch their own service. As we were talking earlier, the idea is to share with everybody kind of the best practices that we apply in our own networks, but also that we offer some of our customers for them to run on their networks.
My name is Mohadjer. I'm president and CEO of SatWays Incorporated. We are both integrator and consulting organization. We provide our expertise across the manufacturing and independent of the product. Our customers base are in oil and gas, in mobility, and more importantly in distance learning and education provided by the different government in the developing countries.
Right now, VSAT market is increasing, mobility and different markets. Could you give us one example of the managed service for VSAT networks that you can provide to your customers?
Yeah, so I think we talked about iDirect being a technology provider, but what one of the areas we're particularly strong is in the maritime vertical market. So, the challenge there is to build a global infrastructure, but then also to build an infrastructure on board vessels where the access to these vessels are restricted, the time that you spend on board is precious, and the expertise of the engineers that deploy to these type of sites is hard to come by. So actually streamlining the process of getting onto these vessels, working through a installation or a fault is very important to the maritime service providers. So I think we're going to talk further on this panel about that type of use case. some of the solutions that we bring to the bear and help our service providers.
From our perspective at Hughes, one of the largest customer base that we have is also the rural connectivity projects out in multiple different governments. One example of that network is a network that we have in Mexico with Mexico Conectado, where we have deployed over 20,000 sites across different networks. One in particular is ran by a customer called Pegaso, who is also now part of the Star Group in Mexico. They have over 5,000 sites that they've installed there, and they operate basically over a Mexican satellite called Bicentenario, doing basically installs across the country. They've installed over, basically they put all those 5,000 sites out and installed them in a very short period of time. It was less than 6 months. They got everything connected across the country. And for that, it was very important for us to deploy and use tools like the one provided by Integrasys to basically ease the deployment in such a way that we didn't have to keep visiting the locations, that you could quickly deploy multiple sites in one day and get out to these difficult parts to reach.
If I can capitalize on that, I represented Pegaso, but before giving that background, according to OECD statistical analysis, the majority of people in the developing countries lack completion of degree of education. What I had the opportunity to help government of Mexico through Pegaso to deploy education network through all the communities and the school system where the students and their instructors had access to real-time browsing and sharing the findings with the students. For their advantage of that technology, where government fund that solution to enable local residents within the 500-meter radius to have free access to the internet. I think that initiative by far was the leading edge of bringing education to the household and fighting with the poverty, with the theft, with terrorism, where people can learn and be busy with learning every day rather than spending time out of their households.
In our particular case, and I had mentioned iDirect is one of our vendors and partners. We also utilize Hughes infrastructure as well in very specific applications. In our particular case, with the TDMA platforms that are available to us, we use it not only offshore but onshore as well in the oil and gas sector. Specifically downstream and midstream customers across North America and across the globe is where we leverage our managed services across and delivering them on the TDMA services that we have. It's a very cost-effective, easy to manage solution that has come a long way since carrier specific or SCPC solutions were available dating back since the start of satellites. Today with TDMA hardware hubs and remote modems, it makes it more compelling and more attractive to utilize these technologies.
With that, the cost of the capacity is and the frequencies is important deploying a VSAT network. But we also did a survey with WTA that sometimes the deployment cost it is even larger than the actual hardware going to the field and going to the hub. So which are the key factors that you analyze when you are going to deploy such a network?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So, I think it's a well-used analogy of an iceberg. And, in the telco industry and the satellite industry, it's easy to recognize what's above the water. So the capital expenditure, the hubs, the remotes, and all of that's easy to track, it's easy to manage, and easy to understand. But if you look at what is underneath the water and on the iceberg, it's the operational costs. So what we hear from our customers is that it's more difficult to understand the operational costs. How much does it cost to deploy an engineer? How much does that downtime or slower installation really cost the business? So the operational cost would be under the water in the iceberg analogy. And just to finish off that kind of analogy, you know, if you look at Titanic, it's HTS. So the big opportunity for the satellite industry is high throughput satellites. You know, it's bringing a lot of excitement into the industry, and it's coming quickly to that iceberg. So we have to be prepared for a lot more subscribers, a lot more operational efficiency, and just generally working more efficiently as a business. So watch out for that iceberg.
Perhaps after deploying 5,500 sites within 6 months, I can testify that education is the cornerstone and the best way saving cost of installation. So if you take time and make sure you pick multiple groups and use the social media to train everybody online, the result would be fantastic. Perhaps the first install may take a little bit longer, but deploying the same resources within the region, within the zip code of that demographic will bring the most cost-effective, and of course manufacturing product which allows self-commissioning. It's a key to minimizing the cost.
Could I just jump in there? I think so iDirect have some experience in education networks as well, and I think one of the critical factors for us was, for our service provider customers, was how long they could actually access the school. So there was only a very finite amount of time that the engineer could actually get on site, do the installation, and then leave the school. So I think having more efficient operational procedures and tools would obviously help with the education market as well. I'm not sure if you had similar experience.
We had the luxury of government being sponsoring the initiative. So we were invited to school. They were welcoming the opportunity. And in fact, one of the beauty of this progress was the instructors, the math instructors, the physics instructors were involved in deploying, because everybody was interested to understand the technology, learn how to install, so they can share that education with the students. In this very specific application, we used Hughes product, which was very flexible and made it easy to deploy the technology.
In fact, what we spend a lot of time doing in the actual network design is coming up with that automated way to build and create the site, get it installed, set up on the network, so that when the installer shows up and then has the proper tools to properly point and get everything optimized on the network, on the site, on the RF conditions and everything, he or she doesn't have to spend any time fixing anything, correcting anything. The site automatically commissions and goes on the network. Not only that, even the ongoing maintenance and support of that site is an important part of it. And reducing that cost is, that OpEx part of the equation is extremely important, because now you need to be able to have somebody who is not a satellite engineer in a location and has to be able to know enough to communicate with a support center if there's a problem or something like that. So you have to have tools that they can access and do this ongoing maintenance without having to have a local or a visit. Now, if a visit is required to some particular, in some of our SLAs, we do contracts, we do have to have a visit regular. Then when they visit, they need to be able to debug or resolve or look at the site quickly with a tool that's automated also. So yes, I think definitely you're absolutely right. The bottom part of the iceberg is really where the cost is, and we are learning that more and more as we launch our own services.
Jesus, would you like to add?
They said it quite effectively, in my opinion. The only thing I would like to add is, I know from the iDirect side, the opportunity we've had to train to ensure that all levels of the support and field personnel are armed with the right equipment, knowledge base, hands-on training has been very fruitful. Without that component, I think all of our tier supports and field support personnel would have a lot of struggles in properly, and I think that's the key word, properly commissioning a site, which I know we're going to talk about here in a second. but without properly doing it, it not only affects the bottom line with respect to how much time you're spending out there, but the satellite operators won't appreciate the fact that you're not commissioning sites in a very consistent manner without interfering with other carriers on the same transponders.
And planning to deploy a network, what are the strategic tools and strategic things that you do to save on cost and in the operation, in the maintenance, not coming back to the installation? Jesus?
Yeah, I think at first with understanding assuming we already have the hub infrastructure and we're looking to grow what our infrastructure is, that the requirements that the customer is seeking have already been properly identified and documented. Therefore, if there is a design review that had taken place, whether it's a preliminary design review or a critical design review, it in fact has taken place and everyone has signed off, including the customer, so that there's no secrets, that come up when you actually go out and you install the site and you realize you forgot to do a particular VLAN or not enough CIR or MIR, and you have to go back and promulgate another solution and put that back in. So gathering and understanding the requirements from the customer's perspective is imperative. That's first and foremost. I think too often we put the cart ahead of the horse and we find ourselves, it's great to get to the finish line and start generating revenue, but in fact, what you've done is put yourself in a position that you're spending more time designing on the fly as opposed to just design, provision, commission, and you're off and running. Sometimes you're doing it kind of out of sync. Documenting the site, documenting and baselining that particular site once it's provisioned and commissioned, and I've already mentioned it before, but the training side of it as well. Therefore, once it's up and running, knock on wood, it's up and running. I think the hardware manufacturers have done a really good job of providing us hardware options, including modems, bucks, antennas that are designed to last. And if you put it in, you do it right the first time, chances are you don't have to come back. And if you do, it's because something very detrimental, or hopefully it's a bandwidth increase and you're making modifications that require you to change the buck, for example. Otherwise, the expectation is that you do it right the first time, you document it, and ensure that it can be supported should a need surface at that point.
I think we also very much, as Jesus is describing, our role is providing our customers with the tools to do this analysis first and to then deploy effectively. We of course have our modem platform, our satellite networking platform, but that's sometimes not enough. We also have to add on there, packet inspectors. We have to put peering routers. We have to put maybe a particular network management system that goes above and beyond what ours does, so that they can manage other devices on the network and deploy other type of monitoring that's necessary. And then ultimately, we usually package also part of the commissioning system that goes with the terminal, so that the customer can also commission quickly, like we were talking about earlier. So, with for example, in this case, we use Integrasys equipment again for that. So we use deep packet inspectors from the best in class. We use the different routers, and then of course our own system and network management systems. We package, for example, EM7 or something like that. And that whole solution is then one we work on with the customer, so that at day one, they've optimized all their throughputs, because let's face it, that satellite bandwidth and the site visits and all that are expensive.
But I think to you guys' both point, it is absolutely crucial to be prepared and educate the customer at the remote location as much as possible. Yet we have to prepare, because these remotes are very dynamic. They don't stay static. Often they are social centers, health centers, schools. So the key is educating the installers and get them prepared, so their expectation is set a lot lower than you go there and surprised to have an abort. So one of the things we did, we tried to talk about documentation, but obviously installers cannot take a whole bookshelf with them. So today, with the social media, with the availability of the network, the smartphone, having the apps on their handset is the key. And so we sort of encourage all of our installers to get certification for the commissioning, including part of that practice, the smartphone, that it helps them to commission and find a satellite or what have you. So both your points are very valid, and it applies to minimize the cost.
Denis?
Yeah, I think just to add a little bit color without repeating the great contributions that we've had. That the end prize is getting to an operational network. That's where we all want to get to. So yeah, the training element is very important, making sure engineers have what they need in terms of knowledge. But in terms of tools, I think products like the Integrasys SatMotion Pocket can help with the documentation aspects as well. So it can make for a more predictable, quicker, more seamless installation. But then it also has capabilities to record that documentation and help the engineers streamline and operate more efficiently while they're on site. So it just offers the end customers more predictability about how long you will be on site and what you'll be doing.
So we discussed about the tools, and we also wanted to discuss about the benefits that the automation brings to the NOC. Denis, can you share some thoughts about it?
Well, I think automation is a buzzword beyond satellite. It's really how are we going to power the future of society. So it's going to bring in a lot of benefits in terms of, like we talked about, like easier, quicker provisioning of networks in our case, but obviously it's changing a whole host of different things in the broader IT spectrum. So I think what we're seeing is tools like the SatMotion Pocket actually help our customers offer more efficient solutions and make the actual VSAT networks more relevant for the end customers. So we're seeing, great customers in the oil and gas industry, for example, providing products and services to the oil and gas industry in a more seamless way that's more aligned with what they expect from a telco network.
Yeah, I agree. And as we are heavily focused in oil and gas or energy across the globe, we do find ourselves in a position that once deployed and leading up to that deployment, effectively having the option files readily available, the naming conventions that we use within the NMS and the PPs to identify sites is done at the front end, but it is not taking hours at a time to do so. So that's a bonus. And I think the reason we've been able to get to that point is, for a decade or so, we've been able to provide that feedback to the hardware vendors and manufacturers of what are we seeing, what are the challenges of, can we get a site provisioning down from 1 hour to 30 minutes? Can we get it down to 15? And the answer is always yes, but you come back and say, well, what's wrong? Well, we have to click too much here. Can you make it seamless where the interface for that particular remote looks like this? And these are the real features that we need. And this particular feature is static. Don't ever change it. Leave it as is. Don't even bring it up. Make it part of the default configuration. So that's how we've been able to get to the point where it's 15 to 20 minutes at the most to create an option file. And if you're really good at it, now you're talking single-digit minutes in terms of creating option files. So that's been very fruitful for us. It gets out there, the option file is installed, and ready to go.
I would just add, I think that you hit the nail on the head. The key to automation is really understanding how you would do things manually.
Yeah.
So before you start talking about integrating Integrasys products into iDirect products, you need the customers, the service providers that really understand the end customers to help us formulate that kind of use case. So, and that's what we're doing with Integrasys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in fact, for us, ourselves as a consumer of networks and creation and products like the SatMotion, we basically have to do this or we won't survive, because the cost that we have is all in that side of the equation is, and we have to automate. We use satellite-based commissioning. Basically, we download, we enter very few parameters into a site and basically have the whole thing automated now with an iPad. And all our customers, VNets, the Saudi Telecom, a number of different customers of ours have all deployed the solution and very happy because they also have the same constraints that we have in terms of how quickly you get the networks up and running.
Absolutely, that the time and the cost saving that you repeat in the series of questions is how do you minimize that cost is based on how automation is well taught in advance. So you enter fewer parameters and you spend less time on the phone. Imagine if you're installing 200-300 sites a day and you have to stay in a queue over the phone with a knock to answer you, you're never going to accomplish unless the system is automated and the phone calls or the looking at the pick and pull for the cross transponder interference is minimized to shortest period of time, so you can call and get the approval and move forward.
So, what benefits do you think that your customers are having thanks to the faster deployment and faster installations?
So so we talked about the benefits to the end customers. So obviously our service provider customers are gaining benefits through less deployment time, faster, more streamlined processes. But effectively, I think what we're saying is that allows satellite to compete. And when we talk about scaling to HTS and bigger markets like IoT, connected car in the future, satellite has to be much more efficient. It has to be much more streamlined, much more like the broader telco market. So what satellite needs is the efficiency and operational effectiveness that this integration and SatMotion brings to our customers.
So I have two sides of the story when I think about the question, Alvaro, and that is I can quickly, with confidence, bid and make a commitment to invest in a TDMA hub because I know it's going to be delivered, it's proven, we've used it, it's in our portfolio, and manufacturing doesn't take months at a time to get delivered, in your case, a 5IF hub, where you need X amount of line cards, timing groups, protocol processors, etc. It's pretty much readily available to do that. So I can make a commitment to my customers to have it deployed within a certain amount of time, and I have the confidence to do it. And I think what you're trying to allude to is, in some countries around the globe, to get a last mile implemented may take 6 to 9 months, maybe a year, depending on where you are, and also some regulatory concerns as well. Well, if we can readily commit to hub infrastructure that is almost off the shelf, we're good on that side. We're ready to move and proceed. Now, how does it benefit the customer from my other side of the equation is because I have it up and running, or I can quickly deploy these networks, I'm able to make their immediate requests and commitments. Therefore, they come to us with a challenging request that a new service is required in a portion of the world that they are new to, and we are already there. We're able to deliver readily, available, and quickly. And if by chance we don't have the remote hardware in our inventory, modems are going to be shipped within a matter of days, if not the same day. Antennas, bucks, etc., routers, switches, it's all readily available, and we can deploy that quickly, meaning the customer is satisfied, they're doing their work in a timely manner, and at the end of the day, we get to generate revenue quicker.
I think it's about, in some side of the equation, it's about being competitive, right? So if you can do things, if you can pack more installs, or you can pack quicker into a day, so you reuse your resources more effectively, then you're going to be able to be a lot more competitive in the market, and so ultimately you're going to be more successful as a company. So to us, enabling that quickness for our customers so that they can quickly deploy, get out there, makes them more competitive. So it's an important part of the equation.
The comment, I think, is everybody answered pretty good. Thank you for the opportunity.
So thanks a lot for joining us. Thank you, panelists. Much appreciated. And we look forward to continue working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.